at the county has been into the office. Any of our staff been to the office to see some of the,
Right.
was our building safe?
I've not been there. I do know that Ashley and Janine were there, I think a couple times, and Trevor and I think Joe have been there.
Okay.
So, all right, it looks like we might be streaming live, so we may be ready to go shortly.
I haven't been down there since they protested, Chantel.
Okay, okay.
We're all set, Gene. We're live. We're good to go.
Thank you. Okay, Ashley and Yvonne, it's up to you.
All right. Councilwoman Conwell, I'd like to call to order the Health and Human Services Committee on today, June 3rd. Ashley, can we have a roll call, please?
On the roll, Ms. Conwell,
Present.
Mr. Jones. Mr. Jones is absent at the moment. Ms. Brown,
Here,
Mr. Miller,
Here.
Ms. Stevens. Ms. Stevens is absent at the moment. We have a quorum.
All right. I didn't notice any public comments sent to me, but I'm going to ask Madam Chair if there was some public comments sent in.
No, no one submitted public comment.
All right. I'd like to have an approval of the minutes from the May 20th, 2020 meeting. I'll move that. Can I have a second, please?
second Brown.
All right, moved and seconded. Thank you, Councilwoman Brown. So if we can, when we move into the question and answer period, if you could state your name and the question that you want to ask. And Madam Clerk, if you could please read the matter referred to committee today into record.
Resolution number 2020-0103, authorizing an amendment to contract number CE 1900189 with JCPenney Corporation for emergency clothing assistance for the period 5/1/2019 to 4/30/2020, to extend the time period to 4/30/2021, and for additional funds in the amount not to exceed $750,000.
Thank you. And who is speaking to this today?
Yes, this is Christine Alexander, Department of Health and Human Services, on behalf of the Division of Children and Family Services. We are seeking approval to amend a contract with JCPenney Corporation for emergency clothing for children involved in the child welfare system. This is a second amendment and will extend the contract for 1 year through next April, at which time it's the intention of DCFS to issue a new procurement for emergency clothing. I also have here with me today Christopher Cabot, Deputy Director of Extended Services from DCFS, to assist with any questions you may have. Briefly, JCPenney provides high-quality clothing options for families involved with DCFS or who are at risk of becoming involved with DCFS. Families approved for clothing assistance are often experiencing a crisis, and therefore clothing must be provided on an emergency basis. The clothing is issued via a purchase order that is produced through Cuyahoga County DCFS. Clothing is also provided to children and youth who are in the care and the custody of DCFS and are placed out of the home. So that would be kinship care families and also foster parents and other caregivers. The clothing itself is provided for children 0 to 18 in sizes newborn to adult. It could include infant wear, children's school uniforms, winter clothing, including boots and coats, underwear, shoes, and sleepwear. JCPenney does offer a wide range of affordable clothing to youth in custody of Cuyahoga County. JCPenney has 6 retail locations within a 25-mile radius of Cleveland. I wanted to provide a little bit of an update during the COVID and the shelter in place, sort of how this has been impacted in terms of accessing clothing. And I just heard today, as of this week, JCPenney has 16 stores that have been able to reopen fully in Ohio. There are 2 in the Cleveland area, North Olmsted and Avon Lake, that are the closest for our DCFS families. JCPenney can also support online ordering if it's an option that we choose to pursue. The average monthly utilization for emergency clothing is up about 18% from our last contract year, with the exception of the months during the COVID crisis that we've seen a decrease, obviously. The increased costs are in line with the increased number of kids that we've seen in custody. In addition, the children in kinship custody has increased about 19% since this time last year. So we kind of anticipate that utilization increasing over time. During the COVID, clothing's been a great concern. So as we take custody of children, they have to put them in placement. In a lot of instances, foster parents or kinship family members have to, reach into their own pockets to provide clothing for children. Now that it's more accessible with the stores open, that should be less of an issue. This was originally procured in 2018. We did not receive a response for clothing with our other emergency services, so we did amend the last clothing contract. We reissued the bid, and JCPenney was actually the only respondent to this RFP. We had about 12 vendors on that list, and again, we do plan to take this out to bid at the end of this contract year coming up. Are there any questions?
Yes, I have a few. On that last point that you touched, Miss Alexander, are the foster parents reimbursed for any money that is spent out of their pockets?
I'm not clear if that's happened during the COVID. My understanding is that they've chipped in so far on their own. I know that DCFS is looking at options to provide some sort of a clothing allowance, if you will, in the future, so they don't necessarily have to rely on a clothing contract.
Okay, and so for the foster parents, are these vouchers that they're given?
So what happens is actually it's the social worker that receives the purchase order, and they make a request based on the family need. This allows us better control of making sure that the purchase order is spent on items that the child actually needs. And it's an easier reconciling process when the invoices come in.
Okay. Can you update me once you find out the answer to if the foster parents are reimbursed?
I
And if-
will, sure.
Thank you. And, or the committee, let the committee know. And when will the next RFQ be sent? We'll start to work on. I know you said the contract's up next April, but when will you actually start preparing the paperwork for the next?
Right. Because this is a fairly simple bid and we will do it with our emergency food and furniture contract all at the same time, probably we'll be working on it around November.
This November?
Yeah.
Okay. And how many other bidders last time bidded for this contract? Because you only mentioned JCPenney. Do we have others? I know we have furniture.
So we have,
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry, the clothing was issued separately and we had 12 vendors on the vendor list and JCPenney was the only respondent.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to open it up to questions to my colleagues. Councilwoman Brown, I'm gonna finger first, and then Miller.
I'm just curious relative to the challenges that retailers are having around just sustainability. Can you hear me okay? That
It's
if,
in and out, but
okay, in the event that but JCPenney, God forbid, finds themselves in a position of bankruptcy or where they have to close their doors permanently, have a another option for the community to utilize, or how would that work in such a case?
so that's a great question. Actually, in the news, you probably did see that JCPenney filed recently for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So DCFS is exploring other options right now in the short term. One of those options would be to, again, allow each child that goes into placement a clothing allowance, so the caregiver can actually purchase those clothes on behalf of the child.
Okay, and then the other question that I had, when you say the caregiver, yeah, purchase the clothes. So what we do they give the does the family authorize or not authorize, but does the family provide the sizes of the child and then we purchase the clothes? Like, how does that work? Because I can certainly appreciate the way that you're doing it, because you don't want them to take this money and use it for something else, because JCPenney's provides a number of products and that they sell. So how are we exactly making sure that money that we disperse is being used strictly for clothes?
I'm going to have actually Chris help me out with that. I think he has a little more detail.
Yeah, well, the expectation is, oh, I'm sorry. I'll come over here.
It's like safety room. There you go. Here, slide it over.
Good afternoon. The expectation is that when, Chris Cabot, Deputy Director, Extended Services, the expectation is that the social worker, when clothing is identified as being needed, would go to the caregiver's home and actually do an inventory of what they have, and also to, observe the kids, see what size they wear, make sure that, so that we're not duplicating things that they already have, and that they're actually getting truly what they need and the money's being spent wisely. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think that's helpful. So they'll do an inventory, and then once they do an inventory, is it on the is it on the social worker to then say, okay, they need more pants, more shirts?
Yeah,
More,
so we actually have a guide.
okay,
Sorry to interrupt. We actually have a guide of like, so that they need 7 pairs of undergarments and 7 pairs of socks and 3 pairs of jeans and things like that. So we would fill in the voids where those things are needed. So we would have an idea of what exactly we're going shopping for.
all right, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Councilman Miller, please.
Yes, I had a question regarding the bankruptcy that was pretty well covered, but I also had a question as to whether we buy the clothing and provide it to the families, or do we have a system where we enable the families to buy their own clothing at JCPenney's?
It's Chris Cabot again. Yes, we definitely would encourage the foster parents to take the children shopping with them. The social worker is always going to be there to support them or do that if they are unable or can't get to the store themselves. But yeah, we would actually encourage ideally the worker to go along with the family. It's not always possible, but we would allow the caregiver or the foster family to take the voucher themselves and do the shopping. Did that answer your question?
Okay, thank you.
Finally,
Councilwoman Brown.
Madam Chair, given again some of the challenges around just people getting to some of the locations in retail, are we encouraging online shopping, or is that not encouraged? Because it seems like the two closest locations might be difficult in these times for some of our people to get to. So I'm just asking as a matter of accessibility.
So that's a great question. I actually just talked to Cindy Weiss-Kettle last week regarding this option. So JCPenney does have other contracts with child welfare agencies in Ohio, one being Ashtabula County. There are 2 options. Some of those counties use what they call the P card, which is basically a JCPenney credit card, and the other is an online shopping option. So Cindy and I talked about that last week, and she's looking into it. Today, we don't have that option set up available. We've had a purchase order system in place for quite a few years. There is a price list that is that's established with the provider in the original contract. So those prices haven't changed. Those prices kind of drive what that voucher looks like for the parent to take to the store.
And Madam Chair, I'd like the record to reflect that Councilwoman Stevens is in attendance.
I saw her, but thank you. Councilwoman Brown, are you finished?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Ms. Alexander, these funds used for this contract, are they HHS funds? HH levy funds?
I'm sorry, there's 79% federal emergency services funds and 21% health and human services levy funds.
All right. I'd like to open it up to any future questions. Further questions, Ms. Stevens? You've joined us. Do you have any before we close out?
The only thing I wanted to know is, do you have a goal of when you would incorporate being able to shop online into your system? Because it just makes more sense these days to do that. So is that something you want to have by the 1st of September?
We don't have a goal date, but we certainly want to do it sooner rather than later. I know since many of the social workers are working remotely, even accessing the purchase order has been a bit of a challenge. So I will definitely follow up with Cindy Weiss-Kettle very soon.
When you find out what the goal date is, could you let us know, please?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
So can I just say, David Merriman, Director of Health and Human Services, one other point on that, on Councilwoman Stevens' question and the broader question of shopping online. I think we all recognize there's a lot of value to doing that. But one of the questions we are asking is there also, what's the impact to the community when we all buy things online as opposed to buying things in shopping centers near our houses? So I just would say that this isn't something we really settled on as this will be our model. I think we want to identify it could be an option, but we also want to know if there are other options that we could present to families. So it's a broader issue. There's going to be broader questions around this, and we're going to continue to look at it.
Well, I don't think that that should be the only way we shop. But for example, we just went through this pandemic where retailers were shut down completely. And if that's the case, kids need clothes whether we're in a pandemic or not. And the delivery process was the only thing happening. So I think that we should have that as an option. I agree with you that we love those sales, that income tax, sales tax that comes in. Remember, we get to collect that.
Absolutely.
So since I'm a finance nerd, I do appreciate that. But sometimes clothing kids trumps the income tax.
Absolutely agree. I think it's just something to, just want to make sure that we explore all options as we move forward.
Are there any further questions, comments, concerns in regards to this committee? Okay, I'd just like to go over, Christine, before we hang up, there was two outlining things that you'll get back to this committee on. That's the online capability, goal date, and foster parents reimbursements spent out of their pocket. And so if there's no future comments or concerns, I'd like to make a motion to move this to the full council meeting under second reading suspension. Can I have a second?
Second.
Second.
All right, I got 2 seconds. Thank you. Can we all, moving this to the full council under second reading suspension, can I have a aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. And if there is nothing else, thank you, Ms. Alexander and Ms. Taylor, and I think it was Mr. Merriman that joined us, and Chris Cabot. Thank you for presenting. Is there anything else that you'd like to share in regards to this contract?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. And continuing on, is there any miscellaneous business, anything, any of my colleagues that would like to state during this time?
Just real quick, if they could provide us, I know we're moved forward, but if they could just provide us with a breakdown of the contract on how it's being spent demographically, that would be appreciated. Just want to know where the dollars are going, which communities are being impacted.
So by purchase order, by zip kind of thing, is that what you're thinking?
I guess who benefits from the contract? Is it primarily young African American children? Is it primarily young white children? Just demographically, I would ask that.
Okay, well, if we collect it, we'll give it to you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think they, Councilwoman Brown, that they do that by zip codes. And we already know that African American children are the primarily in custody, unfortunately, in our system here in Cuyahoga County. So I would see, I want you to expect those in being in higher numbers, but I will add that to my list of questions, and I will send them as soon as I get off of this to you, Christine, just so you'll.
Thank you.
What the committee looks forward to.
I think part of that would be actually it would only actually advance my thinking that if in fact that your assumption is true, it would be great if the inverse was applied or the same methodology would apply to our construction contracts. So, but okay. So thank you. That was on the miscellaneous side.
All right. Any other miscellaneous business? Hearing none, I thank you all for your time and attention to this, and the meeting is adjourned, and I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.